being open to
Yeah.
it. And it shows that conflict isn't the death of connection. It's really the test of it, right? Like it's really the test of the formation of that friendship that you're working on.
In a world that often pulls us apart, More in Common brings us back to what matters. Hosted by Gerren Taylor and Keith Richardson, this isn't your average podcast. It's a challenge to think deeper, question louder, and grow further. At More in Common, we work with NFL teams, tech companies, and professionals across industries to improve communication and foster compassion. And with a focus on emotional intelligence, we aim to bring a wealth of experience to help you navigate the complexities of human connection. We've never been more connected and yet more isolated. We want to explore the roots of that tension and offer a way back to what we all need: real human connection. Enjoy the show.
I feel like I want like a like a game show theme after the main theme. And I can be like, welcome everyone.
Really cause some dissonance in people, right? Like really build that tension.
I am so random. I apologize profusely. Welcome to my brain. It's like all the time.
I'm curious. So I've been thinking about this since our last conversation, in the nature of graph theory. And we spent a lot of time talking about social media and what is influence and what are our networks. What is it for you that is so important about understanding that?
That's a deep question. I like the idea of community. I feel like social media gives us a false sense of community, and I feel like that's dangerous. And not to put too fine a point on it, but I was watching Andrew Schultz podcast recently, where he's kind of going through his realization that, oops, maybe I led people astray. Maybe I led people down a path that, and I think that's one of the big risks, right? Is that when you have a false sense of community, charlatans are easily in place to do whatever it is that they want to do, right? They can sell you snake oil, they can do all kinds of things because people are looking for connections in a place that ain't there, looking for love in all the wrong places. And that it's risky.
You're gonna have to splice that in like you did 2 weeks ago when you spliced in Obama's voice, like just play the song anyway.
But no, I think it's an important and risky area that we find ourselves. It's like you say in the intro, right? We live in a time where you can talk to everyone and anyone around the world, and then also feel hyper lonely, and then also feel completely isolated. And that's not great. We should do something about that. That's not how things should be.
Right. I think back to that conversation, right? Like we talked that social isolation, or more connected. We're more connected, but more isolated than we ever have been. And I think that's what's so important about navigating this topic, right? Like it was fairly theoretical and high level, even if we got into some depth, but thinking about the way society has evolved, and I don't mean people, I mean society, and it's bigger and bigger populations, more people, which is great. It gives us an opportunity to connect and learn and mean, but we just aren't wired for it. Like our brains don't do it well. And as intelligent a species as we are still beholden to a lot of these structures internally that impact us emotionally, and they impact our decision making, and they impact all of these things. And I think what's so important about you bringing this topic up is for us to okay, so now what do we do with it? I mean, you asked this question at the beginning of the last episode and I never answered it. Do you think of us, you asked me specifically, but do you think of us as influencers? And I would like to think so. I mean, I got a great text from a friend of mine who said about the code switching episode that like it's changing, it's like healing some things for himself, right? Like,
Mm,
and what I think is so important about the approach that we take is that our approach is not to tell anybody what to do. Go drink raw milk, right? Go, go do not, but it's not, it's also to, it's very much to explore the complexities of all these things. Like, this isn't easy. It's not easy for any of
yeah,
us. It's not easy for you.
yeah.
It's not easy for me. And hell, sometimes we start a recording and we think we're on the same page and we're not,
Also
right?
true. Although I will say last
Right?
week I said go outside and I stand by that.
Yeah. And I agree. Go outside, right? And I stand by, grab a friend and go sit down and have a conversation, right? Like,
Yes.
just don't just talk about sports. Like, take something.
We'll touch on that
Um,
later too. I have some ideas on that,
we'll,
but
we'll
keep
come,
going.
we'll come back to that. But I think where I want, like, we think about today and the continuation of that conversation is like, it's continuing to just simplify this idea of humanity
Uh-huh.
through its complexities so that we can do small things to make our collective better through our small ecosystems.
Absolutely. Listen, social media is not social intimacy, which means
Mm.
there's a lot of parts about the social connection that still end up missing that you need as a human
Yeah.
being. And it's not going to get solved with Instagram clicks and comments. It's just not.
It's just not. You're not going to replace the impact, both positive and negative, of having real strong connections with people and the emotional influence it has on you with a like it's reported that that's a dopamine thing,
Hmm.
right? We spend so much time seeking dopamine hits in a lot of ways, but dopamine is a fleeting drug where the more you have, the more you need. It is just basic neuroscience.
Yeah.
But we also have other things. We have a lot of neuromodulators, right? That are being influenced by that increase in dopamine, right? And our neurotransmitters and all of their receptors can degrade or increase based on, this is why you can build tolerance to caffeine,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
True.
And you can build tolerance to these things, and then you need, it creates this now impossible to navigate life
And on the flip
unless
side of
we can.
that too,
Yeah.
the when you think about going back to Dunbar's number and your five closest people, right?
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
that built on? That's not built on big thing. That's micro moments over years that you've built up this sense of trust. And in the same way that your neurotransmitters can become, less receptive to caffeine, you can also be more attached to a person based on the constant of that connection, the consistency over the intensity of the connection.
And it can't just be you, oh, this is my best friend because we go and play video games together,
Right.
right? Like, you have to put an intentional effort. We need each other to survive, but that line is so blurred in modern world, which makes this the whole thing that much more complicated, because I actually don't need you, Gerren, to survive, right?
Are you
Like,
sure? No.
I I need my job
Right.
to get me money so I can eat, drink, and have shelter, right? I'm not worried, despite what propaganda might exist, of someone breaking into my house. We've talked about that before. Like, I feel pretty safe. I
Uh-huh.
rely on just complete strangers who wear a uniform to uphold that protection, right? So I don't need you to protect me. Even in the nuclear family, the dynamics of that relationship aren't so much for safety as much as they are for resource distribution, to just kind of do the things you want to do, right? It's like, okay, I'll do the budget and you will take care of the laundry, and I'll do the dishes and you'll clean the floors. Like, just so we don't have to all do it as one. And that degrades our relationship trust building intentionality. And so I think that's why it's so important that we have this conversation around the impact of social media in a practical sense. And how can we leverage this thing that exists to make those relationships more impactful and more meaningful?
Yeah. No, it's about presence over perfection in some ways, right? Like showing up. And, we were talking too and prepping for this talk about getting into some of the tools that we use that we believe in for building deeper connections. And one of the things that I really like and that I try to do with a lot of friends are shared rituals. Like on my calendar, I have 3 calls weekly with different friends. They're 15-minute check-ins. We try as much as we can to be at those meetings every time. Is that possible every time? Obviously not. But over a year, over 2 years, knowing that that weekly call is there, knowing that we're going to do small traditions like, sharing things in our group chat or having a video chat with everybody in the larger group, that type of consistency and persistence over connection is one of the tools that I truly believe in fostering deeper connections with the people intentionally in your life. And what else do you use, or what else do you think are good tools?
I first of all love that tool, right? I love, I don't do weekly, but I love a monthly connection with people, because what ends up happening if you don't is you've got your family, and if you're lucky, you live in a space where you've got your neighbors and you see them every day, right? And you come out the door and they come outside and you're like, hey, let's grab a drink. Right? But that is a fleetingly lesser experience for most of us because we move around so much. Maybe we don't like our neighbors. Maybe we just not like, you move and you're starting at a different social space because now you're looking for friends into a
Right.
space that is established their 5 core people, right? So now we have to invest our time into the relationships that we've just left, but we no longer have the ability to just get together, to just have a
Yeah.
drink, to do that stuff, right? So it's wildly complicated. So having that intentionality is super important. So you can just build on that. But something, and I was thinking about this this morning before you and I jumped on. I have a friend, I've referenced him before. He thinks more conservatively. I agree. I think more liberally in the grand scheme of the social construct. And I was listening, and like he and I will have these conversations, and we were out having one of these conversations again, and we talk about politics, and then I'm sitting there and I leave there and I go, but we didn't really talk about anything. But I do still feel like we're building our connection, like we're building our friendship.
Yeah.
We have a common set of shared values, especially as it relates to our children, even though we might think differently politically, but we both like engaging in the conversation, and that's a core element of developing. But I'm need to get deeper. And what I realize is like in those conversations, it lacks intentionality. Like we're not with a lot of suitcase terms, a lot of we're talking about the same thing, but we're not really talking about the same thing. And
Right.
like I'm trying to figure it out and he's trying to figure it out. And then we're all over the place because that's kind of it. So it's friendly, it's nice, it's fun. But like if it's going to be one of your 5 or one of those 15, like you've got to go deeper and take those opportunities.
Yeah.
So I was listening to this podcast this morning, and it was about this town in Michigan that was going to have a battery manufacturer, right? And like it's a conservative town, and this is like I'm going to tie this together. So I'm going to precursor this. I'm going to abstract for a second to come back to my point. So in the podcast, they're talking about this town who is very pro-Trump, very pro-American business, very pro bringing jobs back to this town that's been depleted over the course of several years. But the company that was coming back was Chinese, that was looking to build the battery manufacturer here. And so because of national discourse, because of discourse that quite honestly has a much more nuanced conversation that they weren't having. They platitude it. China, they're the enemy. Bad for us. Don't bring this back. Continue to live in poverty. We continue to struggle. We continue to live paycheck to paycheck. Like, outsider can't come in to help us, because all of that stuff gets conflated versus, as a community, what should we be doing? What's best for our community? What are our
Right.
options? What should we be
Right.
doing? And it became vitriolic, hateful, like threats against the mayor, all of those things
Oh,
that we
fun.
see all the time. And they all were like of the same political leanings. Like, this isn't some 50-50 town, right? Like, they're like 75-25 maybe. And so we bring this, so we take that conversation and that thing. And so for me, I think it's really important. I sent it to my friend, because like the next time we talk, let's have like a book club. Book clubs are a great way to build relationship, because you're navigating the conversations around a common topic
Yeah.
and trying to see how each other sees it differently and trying to come to a common point about a single thing. And that way we can break down like these platitude elements that are destructive to our collective existence by improving our individual relationships
But
in
taking a
our
step
ecosystems.
back on that particular relationship, I think you're very much exploring one of the great ideas about using emotional risk as a bridge, right? You two both feel a certain sense of vulnerability with each other, which allows you to navigate that disagreement in some ways
Yeah.
differently than you would if you were both like, "Rrr," right? You're both
Yeah.
being like, hey, I'm not that, you know what I mean? Being open to
Yeah.
it. And it shows that conflict isn't the death of connection. It's really the test of it, right? Like, it's really the test of the formation of that friendship that you're working on. But it's also, I think, on the flip side, and one of the things that I want to, I like it when you whisper.
So that was so good. I listen back to our episodes and I hear myself make comments about your comment, but I say it too loudly, and then I can't hear myself and I can't hear you, and I'm like, damn. So now I'm going to whisper them, because that was just so good. So
I appreciate you though, but I want to take on the other kind of part of this, and that the intentionality should be kind of reserved, right? I know that you're making this effort with this particular person, but I also want to make sure that we're reminding people that it's still important to have boundaries, to manage your energy around these things, to know that
yes.
sometimes like that conversation may not go exactly the way you want, and you got to be like, you know what, let's time out. Let's time out. Let's shelve that, and then we'll come back around to it.
But this goes into something that I think is so important as we talk about the impact of social media. We talk about the impact of instant validation,
Mm.
And we talk about the nature of these connections and relationships as we navigate trust in new ecosystems. We get bounced from place to place, whether it's from this job to this job because we quit or got fired and now we have to go find this new. So we're trying to reestablish trust and connection as quickly as possible. Then you add in the social media element that says, oh, this is possible, right? Because a bunch of people liked my post and we're in good standing. We're good. These things take time.
Yeah.
They take intentionality, which is why it's wildly more difficult bouncing from place to place. If you start a new job, you don't earn credibility right away. It takes like a month or 2 months. Like, it's so exhausting. Like, I gotta build my credibility. Well, you gotta do that with friendships.
Absolutely.
So we talk about this friend. He's one person, and that navigation of that relationship takes a lot of energy, but it's positive and productive energy for what I seek out of relationships in my life. I can't give that to 15, 30, 150 people, right? Like, and then we step away and go, man, there's so much happening on the other side of the world. And we wonder why people aren't like, people say this, find your cause, find the thing, and dig in.
Yeah.
right? Dig in. Don't try to solve everybody's problems. Don't try to be friends with everybody, because you are going to exhaust yourself and not achieve any of it.
It's the power of choosing your people and nourishing those ties, right? Like chosen family, choosing the people that you wish to surround yourself, choosing what you're going to invest into, and not in a transactional sense, right? But in order to
Right.
form like a transformational community. Look, you're not going to be able to connect with everybody, and that's okay.
And
It's
that's
fine.
okay.
Yeah,
It
we
doesn't
should.
make them bad. It doesn't
Right.
make you bad. And I think this is also speaks to the importance, as difficult. And look, this is as generalized a statement as I can make, but I think it's really important to make. This speaks to the importance of digging in on familial relationships.
Hmm.
Now, not every familial relationship is
Safe and
is
healthy, yes.
positive. It's safe. It's, there's a lot of stuff, right? But
Yeah.
there are components of a familial relationship biologically and psychologically that have been established from bonding, shared experiences, formative shared experiences, especially with siblings, right? Like a shared time and place in the house, or how we see things differently, or you might go through a period of time where you seem like you're just not on the same page, and then you can come back together and it's like, oh wait, this could, because you have so much history that satisfies a strong emotional component and hormonal component of our existence, those bonds, that when you're 30, 35, you just can't form.
Right.
Like, you are no longer in the same developmental stage of life. You are no longer in the same functional or practical stage of life. And to replace 18 years of lived experience with a new relationship is going to take you another 18 years.
Yeah.
And it's
If not
still
more.
not going to be the same, if not more. So, like, being patient with all of this too, as difficult as that is, I think is such an important component of understanding. Like, take a pause, take a breath, and like,
Hmm.
no, this might just take a little bit of time. And I know you're lonely now, or you're feeling sad now, but put the intention in and know it's just going to take time. Love
Yeah.
at first sight is not a real thing.
Got to build it. You got to build it like any relationship. And, being a small podcast, that's right now as we're trying to grow and we're trying to make these relationships. I do value highly the audience that we have because I know they're loyal listeners, right? I think that we have a strong depth of relationship with the people who listen to what we're talking about, who are trying to have these conversations in their own lives, as opposed to having an audience that's really big, but we're all just whistling Dixie and we're not talking about anything that's impactful or has weight beyond, the 30-minute sessions that we get together.
I think what's really important about that you just mentioned as it relates to some of the things that I hope people do with our podcast is don't just listen to it by yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use it as that, like I just did with my friend, sent him the episode, and when we see each other in 2 weeks, let's both listen to it again and let's talk about it, specifically that thing. Use our podcast as a means of spurring conversations on the impacts. Like, we talk about emotional, go back to the check-in episode and use that and check each other in, right? Like,
Yes.
um,
Hey, can you pause
take,
there and break down the check-in real quick in case somebody missed that? I just want to make sure that people have some context for like how it works and what it is.
yeah. So the emotional check-in it serves many functions. First, it gives a person an opportunity just to explore their emotional experience in a given moment. How are you feeling on the spectrum of emotions, both positive and negative? It gives you an opportunity to see how both positive and negative can exist at the same time. It gives you an opportunity to just put a number on it
Hmm.
that kind of gives you an idea of the intensity in which you're feeling it in any given moment. And it really just gives you a chance to parse the difference between all of these. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we always get is, I always anger was the thing that I always felt. but it's like, oh, it wasn't so much anger. Maybe it was this, and maybe it was this. And oh, by the way, I could be angry, but still feel joy in my life or still feel all of that. So we break all this down deeper, but it also gives the other person an opportunity to see where you are, right?
Yeah.
But give you a non judgmental space to share and build a connection that is rooted in the separation of human experience, right? So I ask you, Gerren, how you feeling on anger? You say 5. I say I honor that. You give me context or you don't. It is entirely up to you. I don't want it or need it because it's not about me, it's about you. And so we start to get to practice that experience of allowing other people to be
Yeah.
in our space and shared time without having to personalize it in such a deep way. Right.
And
So
the
that's the
full
check
range
in.
of check-ins, that feelings that we ask about: anger, fear, worry, pain or sadness, grief, joy, passion, love, gratitude, shame, and guilt. Just so you get an idea of separating each of these emotions mentally and then applying a numerical value to that, and how you feel about it, that emotion in that moment is the ribs of it in some ways.
Yeah. So you can go back to that episode at the end of the thumbnail, at least in the YouTube video. We'll tag that episode to if you want to go check it out. But taking these types of conversations and sending it to someone and saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? Are these guys idiots and crazy? Does what they share resonate? What about it resonates? What doesn't resonate? What do you think is crazy and in lunacy?" And start building that relationship and forming those bonds with those people on these specific topics.
Yeah.
And it's also a filtering mechanism too, right? It's like, oh, I really liked that person when I met them at the party and we talked about golf for 4 hours. And so I sent him this episode and I was like, hey, you want to grab dinner? I'd love to chat with you about this because I really enjoyed and appreciated our conversation. And then you get together and you're like, oh, they're not one of my 5.
And
Right?
it's really good too, because I think people underestimate the power of a "Hey, I was just thinking about you" text. Nothing, I don't want anything. I don't need anything. I'm just saying hi. You crossed my mind, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
a
actually sending
powerful
that text.
connected, and actually sending that
Yeah.
text, and
And
not just letting
sending
it
that
occur in your
text.
mind. Yes, but
Right.
actually following through on the thought. And you made another good point, I think, about too, intentionally going deeper in conversations is another great practice that people can take. If you want to build your community, if you want to understand your connections, intentionally take that conversation deeper sometimes. Make space for a deeper conversation with your friends.
And don't just seek people who think like you.
Mm,
There's no fun in that in life.
yeah, I
It's not
agree.
challenging,
Yeah.
you know?
I was always
And I'm not
a
talking
believer
about
of
just like,
the marketplace
uh,
of ideas anyway, too, right? Like, I
yeah,
think that,
but
it's sharp
but this
steel
is how
sharpens
we
steel.
this is how we get away from these, like that town in Michigan that makes gets such vitriolic resistance to this thing that could benefit them. I'm not saying they
Mm,
should have built it. I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but the reason they didn't wasn't some collective discussion of nuanced conversation that said, this probably isn't what's best for us. It's littered with hyperbole. It's littered with broad generalizations that have nothing to do with their community at all because I think, what are we doing?
I
Right?
mean, I didn't want to bring this up, but since you brought up the Michigan thing again, in Kirk County, where they recently had these tragic floods, it came out in recorded conversations that their county board was talking about not taking Joe Biden's socialist government money to upgrade their flood systems. Their own political ideas were so clouded about what their community needs that they turned down money that could have helped save lives because of, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know, right? Like you said, like, where did you get the idea that this was bad money from the government? It's your tax money. It's your tax dollars anyway, right? But that's I don't want to digress too deep into that. But it is a very critical at times issue what we're talking about, the lack of connection and community that makes us make mistakes for our own downfall, based on stuff like that.
Do you mean the floods in Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said Michigan, so.
No. Well, I said your story about Michigan reminded me of the Kerr County, Texas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I connected the two. I just want to make sure we're
being clear. Yeah.
Clear. Because I may have misheard the word.
It's all
I may
good.
have misattributed to what you were saying. But absolutely, I think that is a great example. And they've been talking about a warning system for 5 years, right? And are we leveraging and using the information that we're getting in a very small ecosystem of influence, back to the word, from these social media or from these even national news, right? Like, and then leveraging that to bolster and understand what we're doing in our small little space? Or are we using it and then blanketing it over everything, and then it's impacting our relationships, it's impacting our communities, it's impacting how we live, and now we're just hurting ourselves?
I think it puts a very bright point on how this can impact our survival, which is really what we should be trying to do, is focus on surviving, but yet we can get clouded by things that are not necessarily the most advantageous for us based on what's happening.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
That's another dense conversation. Like, normally I go back and listen and go, boy, this is dense. This is that first time I felt like, man, that was dense.
That's a lot for 30 minutes, to be honest with you guys. But I'm not, you know what? This is part of what we do here. Yeah, listen, take it off, unpack it, share it with a friend, listen to it twice, add your comments in the and Facebook or social media or whatever. Let's talk.
Yeah, like, just use it to build your relationships.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then, and I never hear about it, I'm happier for it.
And also, you know what? Going back to one of the things before we get out of here, build your rituals. If that's a monthly check-in, if that's a call weekly, or whatever it is that you do, going out to dinner, going bowling, build your rituals with your community so that you can intentionally build that connection. That's how I feel.
Love it.
All right, y'all. This is the More in Common podcast. I'm Gerren Taylor. That's Keith Richardson. We did it again. I'm so sorry for your brain. If you feel, no, I'm just kidding.
If you're tired, hey, share, like it, have a conversation with somebody else about any of our episodes so far. And we may or may not be taking a week off. We'll decide, but that's going to be coming here soon. So I'm teasing it now. We haven't decided. So